Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to a brand new video here today and some more F1 2020 driver career mode. Today we are here for the French Grand Prix and another episode here today of course, and as you guys know, on the custom calendar. So I believe this is round 7 of the season, and if you guys missed the last episode at Canada, then go check it out guys. I'll leave a link up in the top right hand corner of your screen. Either way, today you can see on screen right now, looking at the weather forecast this weekend, we do have some rain expected for qualifying, so that could potentially throw a bit of a spanner into the works. And also, as we look at the R&D graph, we are currently in 5th place. We have actually brought some upgrades this weekend, and I don't know if you can quite tell in the video, but we have closed the gap to Racing Point, who are in 4th place, and there's quite a gap to the top 3 teams of course. And we have some more upgrades on the way. We've got a chassis one, and then there was another one that unfortunately failed that was meant to arrive as well, so hopefully we can try and get onto the car in this episode. And we then move into practice, and it's going to be an interesting one, this one, because Paul Ricard, I feel like, is a very unique circuit in the sense that I think the layout is quite unique, and also strategy wise around here, a 2-stop strategy race is pretty detrimental, and you need to try and go for the 1-stop. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how this one shakes out. And after practice, the pace looked pretty good in both cars, and we seemed very competitive, which is great to see. So as you can see, after practice we scored nearly 700 points, just shy of 700, and that's going to bring our total up to 724. And also in terms of driver acclaim, we go up to level 7, and that's a good way to kick off the weekend as we head into qualifying now here at Paul Ricard, and more specifically Q1. So like I mentioned before, there is a chance of rain, so we'll keep an eye on the skies for that to see when and if that arrives. But for now, we're going to tackle Q1, the first part of the session. There we are, beautiful helm as you can see, and with that we now move on to the racetrack, and this is Q1. And in fairness, like I said before, the pace of the car was really good. Like, I was so happy with the balance and the consistency, and we were just able to push, and the car was able to take it. And in Q1 we did this lap, which was our first one, and it was more than enough to actually see us through comfortably. We go P8, 2 tenths behind Alex Albon, and the other cars did improve afterwards, but we still finished the session in P9. So we managed to save a couple of sets of tyres and go through very comfortably into Q2. As speaking of which, we then move into that session, and the rain was about to arrive, so I went out straight away in the session. You can see it's absolutely dry, no rain yet, and then by halfway through the lap, you can see here Kimi's actually gone out on the inters. We're on the dries. I was a lot quicker than him, and it was around this point now, within a 15-second period, it went from dry tyres to intermediates, and then eventually DRS disabled, as you'll see right now. And yeah, pretty much at this point I realized, never mind, you know, I tried to gamble by going out early, but the grip wasn't there. So we're going to go for a lap on the intermediates, and I waited until the end of the session because we need these inters for Q3 as well if we do get through. So this is going to be my best lap of the session. So let's go on board for a full lap. I'm going to commentate this one for a change. So first of all, turn 1. Very tricky. You want to use the curbing on the right hand side as a reference to turn in, and make sure you take it very easy. Use those higher gears to try and maximize your grip and traction in these conditions. The visibility is pretty poor. The track looks very shiny, so it's hard to see the apexes and stuff, but you've got to try and follow the racing line, and that will be your guide. So far it's been a very tidy sector 1, going up to 4th gear and then 5th gear actually now through here to really try and minimize that wheel spin and maximize the traction. Nearly 3 tenths up on Lance Stroll through the first sector, as we now go onto the back straight. Of course, no DRS along here on the Mistral straight. We're now getting ready for the break point into the chicane, which is very hard to see, and we're going to brake at the 100 meter board actually, even in the wet conditions. 4th gear, then down to 3rd, quickly back up to 4th gear on a short shift, and trying to straight line the exit as much as possible out of the chicane. Back onto the Mistral straight, and you can see purple sector 2, nearly 7 tenths up on Lance Stroll, as we now go flat out through senior, not quite, just a slight lift and a bit of a correction, and now we dip downhill towards this double apex right-hander, which I absolutely love. Trying to pick up that late apex and get that traction down. Don't run too wide, otherwise you'll struggle. You see we get a bit of a sideways movement there. And then this corner here, probably the trickiest corner on the race circuit. Off camber, kind of blind apex left-hander. And we try to get the traction down nice and smoothly as we now approach the penultimate corner, opening up the entry to pick up, again, a bit of a late apex right there. And then we open up the line for the final corner here, short shifting up to 3rd and even 4th gear if you need it, as we now run up to the line. Let's see what the lap is. Is it going to be enough to get into the top 10 across the start finish? Here we go, P7, only 3/10 off Charles Leclerc and ahead of Pierre Gasly. And I tried to go again. You can see here I was pushing for another lap, and we did find a bit of time for the first couple of corners. And this was basically a precaution because everyone was out on track, and I was pushing. And then once I realized nobody was going to improve, I just backed off the lap and decided to just bail and go into the pit lane. So as you can see, we get into Q3 in 7th place. Pierre Gasly also through as well in 9th place in the other car. So happy days, a really good session so far. And we now move into Q3, and this was my first time lap. The conditions got even worse, and we was actually on the full wet tyres, and you can see here we're a 10th up on Sebastian Vettel, and he's in P6, and we're looking very good here. But then at this point you'll see the car start to drift. It was drifting through senior, and now through this double right you'll see I'm struggling with some understeer. Then I get the power down, and there's some more oversteer. Big correction there, still correcting, and the car's just sliding all over the place. You can see here again, we get the apex, but then on the power the back end's just slipping, and it's just not working for us. The rear tires don't want to put any traction down. And then I looked at the tire temperatures, and it confirmed my suspicion that the track was actually drying out. I went out on the wets a bit too late. I missed the window, and unfortunately we went from being a 10th up on Sebastian Vettel, who was in P6, to overheating my tires and eventually finishing the lap about 1.3 behind Sebastian and finishing P10. So a bit of a disaster, but we then switched on to the intermediates, and this was my very last lap of qualifying. So let's see what the lap was like. This time we're going to leave you guys with the raw audio, and let's see if the lap is good enough to get us off the bottom of the table in P10. And here we go out the final corner, trying to just get that traction down. We're going to improve by about 4.2 seconds, give or take. It's going to be a very strong lap. The question is, how strong is it? Let's have a look at the position. P6, there we go. I'll take that. That is a very, very good lap in qualifying. And Pierre Gasly actually finishes P10 on the Inters, surprisingly, so he wasn't able to really improve. But we go P6 ahead of Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes, which was a real surprise to me. And mixing up there with the big boys. And Charles Leclerc on pole for Ferrari, Valtteri Bottas in second in the other Mercedes, and Sebastian Vettel third. And then we've got both Red Bulls ahead of us. So overall, a decent qualifying, P6. The pace in the car was great, both in the wet and the dry. But that's it for qualifying. We're now going to move into an interview.
It's been a great qualifying session for you. Are you going to carry that momentum into the race?
Hopefully. You know, we've got a great car around here this weekend, and I'm feeling confident. The car just feels insane around this track, I've got to be honest.
Do you feel that your teammate put on a good show for their home crowd?
Yeah, I think so, but you know, F1 is also about results, and yeah, we need those.
Great. Well, that's everything.
And there we go then, after qualifying, looking at the rivalry breakdown, we do outscore Kimi Raikkonen by a point, which is great, and we're now 13-8 ahead of him in the rivalry with 3 races to go and 2 more after this one coming up right now, and we do gain a little bit on the acclaim. So there we go then, guys, that's it for qualifying, and a decent session all round. Can we carry that into the race? We're going to have the free tyre choice as well, so we're going to see how that all plays out. Either way, guys, that's it for qualifying. We're now going to move into the French Grand Prix.
Welcome along then to France, host of the world-famous Tour de France. But we're not talking 2 wheels today, we're talking 4, in a country widely thought of as giving birth to the art of motor racing back in the late 1800s. We've come a long way since then, and you're about to find out how far. It's time for the French Grand Prix. 6 lefts and 9 rights give us a total of 15 corners here at the Circuit Paul Ricard, and a lap covers an overall distance of 3.6 miles. Average speeds will be somewhere in the region of 142 miles per hour, and they'll be maxing out on the Mistral Straight at around 205 miles per hour. And I'm joined once again by Anthony Davidson to bring you the lowdown for today's race. Can we talk about Mercedes? What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. A fantastic effort from Charles Leclerc yesterday puts him on pole, and Valtteri Bottas will line up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Vettel, Verstappen, Alexander Albon, Martinez, Hamilton, Ocon, Perez, and Pierre Gasly, Sainz, Stroll, Antonio Giovinazzi, and Ricciardo, Raikkonen, Norris, Kevin Magnussen, and Roman Grosjean, Russell, and Nicholas Latifi. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track and get this Grand Prix underway.
Okay, so before we jump into the race, let's look at the strategy. So we're going to start on the medium tyres, and then we're going to go into the hard tyres. So a very simple one-stop strategy around here, and it's definitely the most effective by far. You can see on the bottom a 10-second difference, and it's probably a bit more than that, to be honest. So yeah, for sure, this is the way to go. Fuel-wise, I'm actually running 1 lap extra because fuel consumption is pretty high around Paul Ricard, and you want to have the extra fuel because the back straight is so long, you're going to need that to defend and attack in this race. But with that aside, let's get racing here at Paul Ricard. So here we go then, the lights are starting to come on. Everyone, it looks like, on the medium tyres. 5 lights are on, and it's going to be lights out, and away we go. And look at that, nice clean traction off the line, getting past Albon and challenging Verstappen and Sebastian Vettel here down towards turn 1. Looks like we have got the line, but then Albon back down the inside into turn 1. He goes around the outside of turn 2, but we just give him a bit of a squeeze and push him away. And look at this, we're now challenging Verstappen now down towards turn number 3. Can we go for a move? Not quite. Verstappen keeping his car in the middle of the track, but crucially for us, we've made a place off the start, and Albon also overtaking Lewis Hamilton. So Lewis losing a place in the Mercedes. We're P5 on lap 1 of this race on the medium tyres in the Alpha Tauri. So really good stuff so far, but we're not out of the woods just yet. Albon and Lewis Hamilton, both of them looking for a move behind me here with some overtake mode as we go along the back straight. But luckily for us, I've got a lot of juice in the tank, and we can just swoop around the outside and hold on to our P5 and avoid the early threat from Lewis and also Alex Albon. And speaking of which, they've actually swapped round. So Alex losing out to Lewis Hamilton in the chicane there. So we've now got a Mercedes behind us, of course, the 6-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. Either way, we then are going to cut a little bit on later on to the race, round about when DRS is enabled, and I try my best to keep up with the guys in front, but ultimately I wasn't just quite able to do it. You can see we're floating around that 1 second window, and the detection line is just around the corner here. You can see on the minimap on the little green spot, and we're 1.1 behind Max Verstappen, so unfortunately we're not going to have DRS on him, and that was kind of what broke the deal for us because at this point, you can see the 3 cars in front, they were just pulling away and they were dragging themselves along with DRS, and that was building a gap, and I wasn't able to keep up. So it was now me versus Lewis, and speaking of which, Lewis, they're going for a bit of a move. You can see in the mirrors, he was having a little bit of a look, and now again through the final corner, and it's those 2 corners there, those last 3 corners where Lewis was constantly looking for a move. And on lap 5, you can see here, Lewis going for it into the chicane. He caught me napping a little bit. I didn't think he'd actually commit to the move down the inside, but he did. Luckily, I read it, and I managed to hold on around the outside and keep P5 for now. And we skip towards the end of the lap, and we lose George Russell from the race in the Williams. So we're now down to 19 runners here today. Meanwhile, Lewis still looking for that overtake in the Mercedes. And we're now going to skip on to the end of lap number 6. And you can see behind us, Albon now 9 tenths behind Lewis. Down the inside again there, trying to stick his nose in, and not quite able to make that move stick. So yeah, it's very close, very competitive here so far in this race, and we're doing a really good job of keeping Lewis Hamilton behind us. And he's going to try again here through the final corner to have a look. We just about turn in, and Lewis backs off and that's very lucky for us. So we've got a few cars in the pit lane further behind, I believe, in the midfield, and we're going to skip now quite a way ahead, so from lap 7 all the way on to lap 12, and it's worth noting that Alex Albon had a few issues with his car, so he started to drop off, and he was 3 seconds behind us, so it made it just a straight shootout between myself and Lewis. And speaking of which, Lewis again looking for the move there, but wasn't quite able to make it count, and that was our breakaway, because now lap 12, this is our scheduled pit stop lap, so we're going to hit the pit lane and box for a set of the hard compound tyres, and Lewis is going to box with us, whereas I believe Valtteri Bottas is staying out for another lap out front. So it's going to be a good old-fashioned pit stop battle here. Mercedes versus AlphaTauri. Let's see how this all plays out, because it's going to be really, really close. Mercedes are very good, of course, and their pit stops haven't been great. So here we go, onto the jack, getting ready to pull away. It's a 3-second stop, and I'm a bit slow to pull away, and we get a bit lucky because we actually goes through Lewis there. I really thought we'd lost that place, but luckily the game ghosted it and we got a bit lucky, so I can't lie, very fortunate in that exchange, but we do crucially remain ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and we're now on the hard tyres going to the end of the race, and we're P11, so it's looking very good in that sense as we approach half race distance, and we're just going to see if we can try and keep Lewis behind for as long as possible in this Grand Prix as we now move on to lap 13. Kimi Raikkonen out of the race for the Alfa Romeo team, as also Kevin Magnussen bells into the pit lane. So it looks like we've got a few cars actually in there this lap, and there's not going to be any VSC or safety car from Raikkonen's retirement. You can see in the pit lane absolutely full of cars, and we're going to reclaim our previous P5. So there we go then, we're back where we were, and it's me versus Lewis once again, and behind us you can see Albon actually with these car issues. He's actually now 5 seconds behind us, and eventually that gap went up even more. So Albon is now not a factor in this race anymore as we set a new personal best. It's literally me versus Lewis to the finish, and we're going to see who comes out on top. And on lap 18, we're doing pretty well. You know, the things are going pretty well for us, but then I made a mistake here, just getting on the traction a bit too early, and that is going to be enough of an invitation for Lewis Hamilton to have a look here. And here he comes with the DRS. I'm keeping my overtake enabled, and we're going to defend the inside line as we head into the chicane. Lewis, though, just has the momentum. He's later on the brakes, and he makes it count, and he gets through. And unfortunately, we drove a flawless race so far, but one mistake, and Lewis just pounced and made the move, which was a real shame, but there wasn't much I could have done, unfortunately. It was one of those mistakes where I shot myself in the foot, and there was no way out. And you can see, even just a lap later, Lewis was already out of DRS range, which was a real shame. So yeah, in the end, that is going to be it. And all the way on to lap 26, now the penultimate lap of the race. You can see on screen the engine wear we're struggling with now a little bit, and we are going to have to take some penalties, I believe, in the next race, or pretty soon at least, because we're running out of components already after 7 races. The Honda power unit is so damn unreliable, and I pretty much just focused the last 5 laps or so on saving the engine, trying to stay off the curbs as much as I could, and just bring the car home really and try and save whatever's left of the engine. So you can see on screen the last lap of the race, Bottas has won the French Grand Prix. Hamilton has the fastest lap of the race to his name, and he even improves even more on the last lap. But we're going to come through for a phenomenal 6th place, and the car was unreal. We fully deserve that, and I'll take that result. Get in.
Alright, race over. Take care of the car on the way in.
Yet another historic win under their belts. Well done to the team at Mercedes. Anthony, tell me, what was it that helped them achieve this success?
Well, this was a real team victory. They put together a solid strategy today that appeared well suited to the conditions out on track. The driver did everything that was expected of them in the moment to really execute the team's plan to perfection, a shining example of how F1 really is a team sport.
Mercedes are on top form once again after an excellent race weekend. It's great to see them up on that podium once again.
So here we have the final race results, and Valtteri Bottas picks up the win. Sebastian Vettel P2, Charles Leclerc in 3rd place after starting from pole position for the Ferrari team. Verstappen finishes P4, so 2nd, 3rd and 4th were pretty much neck and neck the entire race. Hamilton 5th place with the fastest lap. We finish in P6 ahead of Esteban Ocon. Lance Stroll 8th place with Pierre Gasly P9 scoring a couple of points here today, and Alex Albon in P10, of course, with his issues with the Red Bull, scoring the final point here today. And Perez, Giovinazzi, Ricciardo and Sainz all missing out on the points. We then move into the driver's standings, and after that race we are down to P6 unfortunately. Max Verstappen does overtake us, which was a shame, but you know, we were punching above our weight. And you know, besides that, if we look now behind us, we've got a very nice gap to Albon, Ricciardo, Norris, you know, all these guys. We've got a nice healthy lead, so there's a good chance I could hold on to this P6 for a little while if I keep bringing home these big results. Meanwhile, at the top of the table, Hamilton 41 points clear of Leclerc, 48 points clear of Bottas, and also Gasly still in P12 there in the other car. And then finally, the constructor standings, we are in 4th place, and again, just like the drivers, we're pretty comfortable now. We've got a nice gap to Renault behind us, and we're about 27 points behind Red Bull. So yeah, overall no complaints, things are looking pretty solid, and we're now going to move into a quick post-race interview, and then we're going to move into the laptop.
You're beating all expectations. Would you say we all underestimated you?
Maybe you could say that. I think you underestimated the team. You know, we're working really well at the moment, and the results show that.
It's your teammates' home Grand Prix. Do you think they enjoyed themselves out there today?
I hope so. You know, it's the home race. You know, you do notice it when there's a home crowd pushing you on, so I hope you really enjoyed it.
Appreciate your time.
And there we go then, looking at the rivalry breakdown, and it's pretty much a clean sweep. 4-0, Raikkonen doesn't even score a point, and that means we're now 17-8 with 2 races to go now, not 3, it's 2 races now. So we're looking really strong in that regard. Also a nice big boost to the driver acclaim, and with that we're now going to move on to the laptop because we've got some work to do. So let's see what the agenda says. So you can see we get a couple of resource points, and we're now up to 1,000, and we've got an upgrade planned for the first, which of course is our chassis upgrade, but we're going to add some more upgrades to that. So jumping onto the R&D screen, you can see we're going to repurchase the failed upgrade that we should have had for this race, and we're going to add to that because we've still got 700 points. So we're going to throw on also an engine power upgrade because of course we're heading into Austria, Silverstone, Spa and Monza soon, so we need that engine power to be better on the car. So a couple of upgrades on, and you can see the chassis upgrade does arrive, so everything's looking great heading into the next race at Austria, and then after that hopefully we'll have a couple of upgrades on the car for my home race in Silverstone. But guys, that is it from me here today for this episode of the Driver Career Mode. If you guys enjoyed it, then drop me a like, it'd massively help me out, and subscribe if you are new to the channel guys for daily F1 2020 content, and also click the bell icon to be notified when that new content does go live. But on screen right now you can see the previous episode along with also a random video, so go check those out. But guys, that's it from me here today, and I'll see you all next time for the Austrian Grand Prix. But until then guys, take care, and it's goodbye from me.